Word filtering back from local residents painted a very specific picture. Federal investigators were knocking on doors, asking everyone about a sudden, community-wide blackout of wireless networks. People reported sudden losses of connectivity aligning perfectly with the exact timeframe Nancy vanished on February 1st, somewhere near 1 or 2 o'clock in the dark of night. Several locals confirmed their screens went dead right then. Then came the chilling data point at exactly 2:28 a.m. on February 1st, 2026. The digital rhythm of Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker failed to update, that vital piece of tech resting inside her, the very mechanism tracking her pulse and tethered to her mobile device through a wireless bridge, abruptly halted its communication, never to reconnect. To detectives, this was a glaring red flag. She had been moved beyond the walls of her residence, separated completely from her handset. This heavily implied a forced departure, yet the evidence pointing toward a highly calculated plot lay elsewhere. The real smoking gun surfaced 37 days after the fact, sitting just down the street from the matriarch's property, a local telecom hub. It was tampered with, not casually smashed, not spray-painted by teenagers, nor merely glitching, but intentionally compromised when a prominent journalist from the Fox network, Michael Ruiz, pressed the Pima County authorities on whether this tampering tied into the broader mystery. Officials chose not to deflect. They verified the suspicion, stating it was officially under the microscope as part of their active inquiry. It was March 8, 2026, the 37th day of the search. Detectives had finally openly acknowledged a theory that seasoned tactical analysts had been quietly discussing behind closed doors. This incident carried zero marks of an opportunistic strike. What unfolded resembled a tactical breach, orchestrated with an incredibly high level of electronic expertise, and pulled off flawlessly. The individuals who facilitated Nancy Guthrie's sudden disappearance on that first day of February possessed a terrifying mastery of their craft. These shadow operatives comprehended digital networks intimately. They knew the ins and outs of residential alarm grids. They possessed a deep knowledge of municipal cabling. More chillingly, they possessed the exact blueprint required to make an 84-year-old completely vanish into thin air, entirely bypassing modern surveillance webs. Nancy Ellen Guthrie, an 84-year-old senior citizen, is widely recognized as the mother of Savannah Guthrie, a prominent face on the NBC morning broadcasts. Her residence sits in the upscale enclaves of Catalina Foothills just above Tucson, Arizona, an exclusive area where property values kick off at $800,000 and easily soar into the seven-figure range. It is a highly insulated community boasting a virtually non-existent rate of illicit activity, a place where residents are on a first-name basis, and late-night runners feel absolutely no fear. In this kind of sanctuary, an older individual living independently would never lose sleep over personal security. You simply would not expect a sophisticated forced relocation involving signal-blocking hardware and municipal grid tampering to unfold in such a pristine zip code. Yet, the nightmare became reality. Flashback to January 31st, 2026. The evening consisted of a quiet meal shared with her other daughter, Annie, alongside her son-in-law, hosted at their personal property. It was a completely standard family gathering, devoid of any red flags. Shortly before 10, around 9:45 p.m., she was chauffeured back to her doorstep, where she stepped indoors, secured the deadbolts, and retired for the night. Within hours, she was simply gone. Now, 37 days have passed, and her whereabouts remain a haunting blank. Before diving into today's massive revelation and how it completely flips the narrative, if you have been tracking this deeply unsettling mystery, make sure to hit that subscribe button and toggle on your alerts. Our channel is locked onto every single twist the moment it surfaces, analyzing every clue and official statement from federal teams, because bringing closure to this family is paramount. Her relatives, especially her daughter Savannah, are owed the truth. Lock in your subscription right this second and tap the notification icon, as we are standing on the precipice of a massive breakthrough. Earlier today, that same prominent media correspondent approached the regional sheriff's office with a highly specific query. He pointed out the compromised telecommunications terminal sitting mere steps from the missing woman's property. He bluntly asked if this piece of infrastructure played a role in their active manhunt. The response from Regional Command was incredibly swift. They stated explicitly that the unit is under active scrutiny in relation to the broader search efforts, though they kept their cards close to their chest regarding further specifics. When dealing with a mystery grabbing national headlines, top brass absolutely do not validate clues unless they hold serious weight. They only acknowledge details that are a crucial piece of the puzzle, pointing toward a looming revelation. For those unfamiliar with neighborhood electrical and web grids, pay close attention to the implications here. You see those standard issue, painted metal cabinets positioned along sidewalks in quiet subdivisions all the time. The average pedestrian strolls right by them completely oblivious. Yet, behind those locked panels sits the lifeblood of modern connectivity, pushing broadband access to dozens of houses. They house the wiring that facilitates landline communications and occasionally route main power feeds. Ultimately, they act as the absolute digital epicenter for suburban blocks. The specific terminal in question is situated just out of sight from the Guthrie residence. It was not planted squarely on her front lawn where interference would draw immediate eyes, but rather tucked down the intersecting street, regulating the data flow for that entire quadrant of the foothills. Her address included, and the authorities declared it tampered with. The specific phrasing here is absolutely critical. Terming it shattered implies a mishap, while labeling it defaced points toward reckless teens. Calling it defective would mean a simple hardware crash. However, labeling it compromised paints a much darker picture, a cold, calculated, and now heavily probed act of sabotage. Law enforcement is maintaining absolute silence on the exact timeline of the tampering, the methods used to breach it, and whatever physical traces their forensics unit managed to sweep up. Yet, when you stack this hardware breach next to the Federal Bureau's intense ground game in that very same zip code over the last 7 days, a terrifying narrative takes shape. It is a grim, highly coordinated reality that cannot be ignored. Fast forward to March 6th, when prominent network journalists Liz Kreutz and Rebecca Cohen dropped a bombshell exposé. Joint task forces of federal operatives and local deputies had essentially blanketed the entire suburban sector surrounding the matriarch's home. They were not scouring the bushes for dropped items, torn fabric, or dangerous tools. Instead, they were knocking on every single door, interrogating homeowners with one hyper-focused inquiry. They demanded to know, did your household lose its web access on the exact night of the vanishing? Did anyone experience a sudden crash in their wireless network hovering around 2? Detectives did not walk around asking folks about strange sights on February 1st around 00 a.m. They skipped the standard questions about weird noises in the dark. Instead, federal agents wanted to know if the neighborhood web connections suddenly dropped out. Several residents living nearby told NBC News reporters that authorities focused heavily on this specific detail. While dropping another massive hint, it turns out quite a few locals experienced weird digital hiccups during those exact twilight hours. We are not talking about standard service drops or scheduled tech updates. These were highly specific, mysterious stutters that only impacted a tightly contained zone. The feds were onto something massive. The main power relay station feeding data to that block had been deliberately tampered with. Investigators found concrete proof that an individual purposely severed both the broadband and cellular links across NY Street on the exact evening of her sudden disappearance. The motive behind this tech blackout blinding the surveillance. Those popular front porch lenses require a wireless signal, and without it, their digital eyes are shut tight. Zero video evidence gets pushed to remote servers. Not a single ping hits a resident's smartphone. Even those high-tech deadbolts tracking every door swing completely rely on an active web link. Cut that digital cord, and the access history vanishes. Security panels designed to alert dispatchers instantly become expensive wall decorations without a solid ping. Silence the network, and you silence the alarms. If an operator plans to force someone out of their residence in 2026 without sparking a digital manhunt, severing the grid is step 1. Neutralize the wireless waves. Blindfold every single lens in the vicinity. Wipe out any potential trace of the upcoming operation. That is precisely the playbook executed on this block. Yet the smashed data terminal is merely the tip of the iceberg. Journalist Brian Anton from NewsNation has been digging into these desert shadows out of Tucson. He recently uncovered a chilling piece of the puzzle that suddenly brings the whole picture into focus. The guy living right over the rear fence from NY's place had a pair of smart monitors hooked up to his back wall. Those devices pointed straight at her property, humming along 24/7 for ages, catching every shadow and beaming it securely to the web. They ran flawlessly until February 1st. Right around 2 a.m., both digital sentinels simultaneously flatlined. Absolute darkness. That resident swore to detectives that this simultaneous crash was a first, a total anomaly. Yet, on the very evening Nancy was forcefully relocated, at the precise moment intruders cleared her doorway just steps away, the electronics died. And the weirdness did not stop there. The guy's pet hound snapped awake in the dead of the night. Normally, this animal is out cold until dawn. However, as the clock hit 2 a.m., the canine grew incredibly restless, demanding to hit the yard right then and there. The owner opened the back door. The hound completely skipped its usual routine. No pacing, no sniffing the grass. It simply froze, locking its eyes directly on NY's structure. Complete silence, no growls, no whimpers. It just stood like a statue, fixated on an unseen disturbance. The animal picked up on the very shadows those dead lenses were supposed to capture. But the grid was already down. Let that chronological precision sink in. The absolute second Nancy gets extracted, the technological watchdogs go to sleep. The instant a highly sensitive animal detects a threat next door, the digital memory banks are already wiped clean. Ex-federal investigators tracking these clues keep dropping 2 heavy words to explain this orchestrated blackout signal blocker. This hardware blasts interference across a targeted zone, totally scrambling local networks. Running one as a regular citizen inside the United States breaks federal laws. The FCC strictly bans them, yet acquiring one is shockingly easy. Sketchy international vendors peddle these gadgets openly, and they are compact enough to hide in your jacket. They run on standard batteries and pack a serious punch. Once flipped on, the scrambler floods the exact radio waves that your home router relies on. Whether it is 2.4 gigahertz or the 5G spectrum, the malicious noise drowns out the real data stream. Suddenly, every smart gadget drops off the map. The video feeds freeze instantly. Automated home defenses enter a coma. The blast radius all comes down to the unit's wattage. A basic pocket-sized model covers about 30 to 50 feet. Upgraded gear can easily blanket 100 feet or beyond. In a tight suburban grid, where properties sit shoulder to shoulder, a single, cleverly placed scrambler can completely blind the digital eyes of half a dozen homes at once. Porch monitors go dark. Mesh networks collapse. Entry chimes stop logging motion. Deadbolts forget to track visitors. And security panels lose their emergency cloud tether. The entire safety net is vaporized. Retired Bureau Operative Maureen O'Connell recently sat down with Fox News to break down this chilling tactic. She noted that the tactical brilliance here is deeply disturbing. Pairing a localized signal scrambler with the physical destruction of a power relay is not the work of some rookie street thug. We are dealing with an operator who comprehends digital infrastructure with expert-level precision. This predator knew exactly how these defensive arrays talk to each other and exactly where to strike to silence them. On top of that, veteran crime scene analyst Betsy Brentner Smith dropped another bombshell theory while speaking to Fox News Digital. She suspects the authorities actually have a tight list of targets in their crosshairs, but they are playing their cards close to the vest to keep the operation totally compromise-free. Furthermore, she threw out the terrifying idea that the orchestrator actually circled back to NY's doorstep after the initial extraction, sneaking back onto the scene to sweep for dropped clues, spy on the arriving detectives, and verify their dark mission was a success. That kind of double-check is far from a random act of chaos. It is cold, hyper-focused, and chillingly disciplined. Just look at the chronological breakdown of that twilight hour. And the undeniable proof is right there. Let us reconstruct the early hours of February 1st. 2026. Second by second. At 1:47 a.m., NY's room is completely peaceful as she rests. But outside, her entryway lens catches a nightmare unfolding. A fully concealed figure steps onto the deck, wearing a tactical mask that hides every feature. Dark gloves conceal his fingerprints. A hardware pouch meant for a sidearm hangs noticeably off his belt, paired with a dark Ozark Trail rucksack slung over his shoulders. Dark attire with charcoal trim, the kind of gear you only grab off a specific retail shelf. This figure just lingers on the porch. He makes zero effort to conceal his identity, staring dead center into the lens. His hand stretches toward the lens. Everything cuts to black. Nancy's front porch system was abruptly severed at 1:47 a.m. Local authorities confirm. And right around 2 a.m., federal agents noted a terrifying pattern that is exactly when the neighborhood's grid started failing. Countless locals suddenly faced network blackouts, strange digital hiccups, and completely severed connections. Right over her back fence, a neighbor watched his 2 security setups instantly drop signal, something that had literally never happened before. Even his hound got restless, scratching at the door. Plenty of others likely suffered the exact same outage, completely unaware while lost in deep slumber. Fast forward to 2:28 a.m., deep inside her private quarters. Her mobile device rests quietly on the bedside table. The display is entirely black, plugged into the power source. That crucial medical device resting inside her chest continuously beams health updates via wireless frequency. It tracks every pulse, every single flutter or anomaly. For months, this life-saving tech worked flawlessly. But at 2:28 a.m., it attempts its routine upload. It scans for a signal. Scanning. Still scanning. Link failed. Her internal monitor suddenly strayed too far from her mobile device. Specialists break down exactly what this chilling detail signifies. When this piece of tech drops its link, you are looking at 3 distinct scenarios. First, the unit gets surgically extracted from the patient. That demands a sterile operating room, which absolutely does not align with a midnight break-in. Second, the individual simply passes on, and their vital beats completely cease. The device naturally halts its standard broadcast. The third grim option, the wireless bond shatters because the victim has been hauled far out of signal bounds. That specific wireless reach caps at roughly 30 feet, often shrinking drastically through solid walls. Nancy left her mobile sitting right beside her bed. If that digital heartbeat vanished at exactly 2:28 a.m., the conclusion is downright terrifying. She was dragged well past that 30-foot radius. She was gone from her sanctuary, forcibly relocated, pulled away from her property, and pushed into the dark unknown. 2:36 a.m., 2.5 miles out, a random porch lens spots a mysterious ride. Not cruising the primary avenues, but creeping down a secluded bypass sliding out of the hills toward a major intersection. Former big city investigator Pat Braun combed through these shadowy frames alongside his elite squad. They tore apart every pixel of that car, the curve of the roof, the precise shape of the glass, the glowing tail lamps. Their bet lands on a specific boxy compact model, pointing to its angled top and unmistakable upright glow in the back. But the real smoking gun is the clock, 2:36 a.m., just 8 literal minutes after her medical monitor failed to connect. 8 terrifying minutes after she was pulled into the night. That narrow window is all it takes to snatch a target, force them into a getaway ride, and speed exactly 2.5 miles away. That works even if you creep along quietly on hidden dirt paths. Top local law enforcement confirmed to major networks they are hunting down that exact set of wheels amidst a sea of nocturnal traffic. Yet, those matching minutes are way too chillingly flawless to write off as mere chance. The device goes dark at 2:28 a.m. She vanishes from the residence. That shadow car appears miles down the road at 2:36 a.m., a tight 8-minute gap. And this entire nightmare played out right as the local grid spiraled into a completely chaotic blackout. While security feeds blinked shut, A crucial neighborhood telecom box was intentionally tampered with, a devastating twist revealed in the latest headlines. This was never a random strike. Forget mere coincidence. This was cold, calculated execution. Break down the sheer level of strategy involved here. The perpetrator knew that by 2026, grabbing a target from a wealthy suburb is practically impossible. Every single doorway boasts a digital sentry. You cannot evade interconnected alarms tracking every turned handle, nor can you dodge the gaze of hypervigilant neighbors armed with high-def lenses. You must blind the surveillance first. Whoever orchestrated this disappearance knew the drill perfectly, deploying frequency blockers to instantly sever every watchful eye. They sabotaged regional hardware to choke off the broader data stream, likely combining both tactics for maximum darkness. The intruders grasped exactly how these smart feeds blast data to remote servers, completely mastering the art of paralyzing them without laying a single finger on the plastic. They played the clock like a maestro. From 1:47 to 2:28 a.m., they had a flawless 41-minute opening. The dead of night ensures the deepest sleep cycles. Empty asphalt, zero wandering eyes. The phantom figure breached the perimeter at 1:47 a.m. By 2:28, the victim was gone. 41 fleeting minutes to cripple the alarms, infiltrate the premises, neutralize an 84-year-old resident, and slip away into the shadows. Their exit strategy was airtight. That fleeting car at 2:36 a.m. actively avoided busy arteries. It stuck to the hidden veins of the city. One seasoned detective warned the press that you do not just accidentally wander down that path, it requires absolute geographical mastery. This completely rules out a drifter hunting for a crime of opportunity. We are talking about an apex predator who studied the terrain, mapped out exactly where the blind spots were, and plotted a ghost-like trajectory from that quiet suburb straight out to the highway unseen. Hard forensics back up this terrifying theory. Hand coverings discarded 2 miles away eerily mirror the precise gear worn by our ghost on the porch feed. Crime scene techs managed to pull genetic material right off the fabric. On March 5th, the lead official admitted the profile belonged to a nearby diner worker. However, that individual was totally cleared of any foul play with a rock-solid alibi, leaving the remaining evidence under tight scrutiny. They bypassed the standard federal laboratories entirely. Instead, they shipped it off to an elite private facility in Florida renowned for pulling impossible genetic markers. The grim reason behind this move, top brass revealed to national reporters that they are untangling a highly complex, layered genetic puzzle left behind at the crime scene. A genetic cocktail, biological material blended from several different contributors. Music. Untangling a biological web like this to pinpoint specific individuals is an absolute nightmare. We are talking about a grueling process that eats up weeks, or even months. Top-tier laboratories have to deploy cutting-edge methods just to pull apart those unique genetic signatures. Hoping to craft something they can actually run through the system, Nanos pointed out that this genetic soup points to a group effort, meaning a whole crew was likely swarming the estate, rather than a lone wolf. Ex-federal investigator Maureen O'Connell shared her insight with Fox News Digital, noting that when you have a syndicate working together, that staggering $1 million bounty acts as a massive pressure cooker. When a crew pulls off a job like this, and I strongly suspect music, they find themselves roasting in an oven, waiting to see who breaks rank first. We are talking extreme heat, music, intense stress. Paranoia creeps in. What happens if my buddy spills the beans? What if they claim that massive payout while I end up in handcuffs? How do I know I won't take the fall while they vanish with a cool million? That kind of paranoia shatters loyalty, forcing accomplices to betray their own. O'Connell is convinced this was a heavily coordinated scheme. You've got your mastermind mapping it out, your muscle carrying out the deed, music and your supply guy handling the wheels and the hideout. The recovered tech absolutely backs up this theory. Signal blockers, music, tampered power lines, deep understanding of alarm networks, intimate knowledge of the streets, and perfectly mapped getaway paths. Such calculated precision screams highly trained professionals or a specialized syndicate pooling their unique talents. Music. bringing us to the one chilling mystery that remains unsolved. Why target Nancy Guthrie? Several demands for payment have surfaced. DMZ got one, and the relatives received at least one directly. The entertainment outlet claimed the message they were sent was an incredibly complex extortion attempt. They demanded digital currency, specifically avoiding Bitcoin. Music, since that leaves a digital footprint, they wanted untraceable privacy coins, accompanied by horrifying threats detailing the consequences of failing to pay up. The news outlet immediately handed that document over to the feds. Yet, a massive gray area remains. Music. Did any money actually change hands? The Bureau is staying completely silent. Her loved ones are keeping quiet as well. And 37 days later, Nancy has yet to be found. If cash was the sole motivation here, things should have wrapped up weeks ago. Generally, the family wires the funds and the victim comes home. Alternatively, the funds are withheld, leaving the captors stuck holding an 84-year-old cardiac patient for an endless amount of time. The logic just isn't there. Music. Perhaps the money was just a smokescreen. Detectives might be sitting on explosive hidden details, some dark, unreleased tie between the Guthrie clan and the people who orchestrated this. Sheriff Nanos has been walking on eggshells whenever he speaks to the press. However, on March 2nd, while chatting with NBC News, he dropped a fascinating hint. He stated his team is absolutely narrowing the gap. He doubled down, saying he has never wavered in his belief that his deputies will crack this mystery wide open. He didn't just say they were chasing tips. He explicitly noted they were definitely closer. That kind of phrasing screams that they are holding back crucial evidence. The top cop also shared a deeply personal conviction, stating firmly that he feels Nancy Guthrie is still breathing. He admitted it was just his gut feeling, rooted in his natural optimism and unshakable faith in the process. Still, he isn't ignoring the grim reality. Music. Nancy is 84 and reliant on a heart device. Sure, she doesn't require daily pills, which is a blessing, but being stashed somewhere away from proper medical supervision, music, completely cut off from doctors, could cause her physical state to crash hard. 37 days is an eternity. With every sunset, the math gets darker regarding her safe return, yet, the hunt is only accelerating. By day 33 of the probe, the entire strategy shifted gears. Prior to that, practically the whole Pima County Detective Bureau was throwing their weight at this single disappearance. It was a massive, all-out blitz, but you simply cannot run a department like that forever. The rest of the city still had active cases and families crying out for answers. To adapt, Command assembled a specialized strike team. They pulled 4 seasoned investigators and 1 sergeant off their normal beats, dropping them right into the Federal Bureau's Tucson headquarters to breathe, sleep, and eat this investigation round the clock. This unlocked the ultimate federal arsenal. National crime labs can blast through physical evidence at lightning speed compared to the county guys. They tapped into CODIS, the ultimate genetic registry, and brought in elite profilers who specialize exclusively in abduction scenarios. You've got tech wizards decoding signal interference and alarm grids, alongside forensic accountants hunting down phantom digital money trails in case a payoff happened. Plus, data gurus are actively connecting the dots across a massive web of intelligence streams. Operating under the federal roof instead of the local precinct is a massive game changer. It means the big guns are steering the ship, music, pouring in endless assets, and backing up the local cops, while wielding federal muscle to push the hunt forward, and it is absolutely paying off. Finding that tampered electrical panel today is solid proof that even 37 days deep, music-fresh clues are still surfacing, making the net tighter. The feds set up their dedicated hotline 1-800-CALL-FBI way back in early February. Those initial weeks were pure chaos on the switchboards. Tens of thousands of concerned citizens dialed in, flagging anything that looked even remotely shady. Folks claiming they spotted Nancy kept calling in. Others swore they could identify the disguised figure. While their intentions were pure, these leads ultimately led nowhere. One caller was absolutely certain they noticed her at a Phoenix filling station. False alarm. Another tipster was convinced the shadowy prowler resembled the guy living next door. Wrong again. Sifting through this endless mountain of public speculation consumes a staggering amount of investigative hours. Each and every call must be recorded, scrutinized, and chased down if it holds any weight. However, lately, the flood of incoming clues has slowed to a mere trickle. On March 5th, Fox News correspondent Matt Finn shared that federal agents noticed a massive drop-off in public leads following that first massive wave. Meanwhile, Josh Campbell over at CNN highlighted a critical perspective. Drowning in a sea of useless public theories can actually drag a complex inquiry to a grinding halt. When 90% of these avenues turn out to be completely useless, detectives are wasting 90% of their shift on wild goose chases. That precious time should be entirely devoted to concrete clues. We are talking about forensic lab results, deep dives into security tape, and constructing a rock-solid dossier against figures who might already be squarely in their crosshairs. This sudden silence from the tip line, it could actually be a brilliant sign. It strongly suggests the authorities have completely zeroed in on their target. They are quietly pursuing highly specific avenues right in the shadows. Take that disguised intruder on Nancy's front steps. Federal agents dropped both still frames and video clips pulled straight from her digital peephole. They peg his height right around 5'9" to 5'10", a completely ordinary frame. Yet, he was carrying some highly unique accessories that should easily give away his identity. There is a weapon carrier strapped to his side. It is far from your standard tactical gear, boasting a very specific pattern. Plus, the camera clearly caught a ring shining right on his smallest finger. He was lugging around an Ozark trail bag, specifically black detailed with gray highlights. Former federal operative Jennifer Coffindaffer broke down this very tape, insisting the guy sticks out like a sore thumb. From his thick brow to his facial hair, right down to his distinct wardrobe choices and that flashy little piece of jewelry. Compile all those traits, and there is zero doubt in my mind that at least one person, maybe even a whole group, knows exactly who this individual is. His face is familiar to someone. A person walking among us holds the key to this intruder's real name. Yet, absolutely, nobody has stepped up to the microphone. The reason, pure terror, of payback, misplaced devotion, or perhaps they are tangled up in the plot themselves. The federal authorities also flagged another incredibly chilling detail. An insider revealed to Fox News Digital that a specific security snapshot was logged on an entirely separate occasion. This disguised prowler actually crept up to Nancy's property before the 1st of February. He was hunting, studying the layout, and mapping out his sinister game plan. Former top-tier federal agent Jason Pack explained to the network that this simple fact proves we are not dealing with a spur-of-the-moment act of violence. We are witnessing cold, calculated precision. It is the absolute signature of a predator who methodically plotted every move long before striking. In the eyes of the law, this changes everything. That kind of calculated intent radically amplifies the gravity of the charges hanging over this case. Yet, strutting in front of that lens over and over again, while desperately trying to stay hidden, was a massive tactical error. It handed the detectives countless extra angles to finally rip off his mask. On February 24th, 2026, Savannah Guthrie unlocked her device, framed the shot, and uttered a heartbreaking truth that no child should ever be forced to broadcast to a global audience regarding her own flesh and blood. The reality that her mother might have already slipped away forever. Let us stop right there for a second. We are talking about NBC Today's powerhouse anchor, a fiercely polished reporter with decades of experience under her belt. She is the voice waking up millions of citizens across the nation day in and day out. She has reported on unspeakable heartbreaks, sat face-to-face with shattered relatives, and held it together during the most horrifying events known to man. But this is not another headline. This is the woman who raised her. And now, she is openly facing the devastating possibility that Nancy might never walk through those doors again, that the most merciful resolution left is simply bringing her back to give the family peace, allowing them to finally say a proper goodbye. Throughout the clip, her tone never wavers, yet the sheer agony in her eyes speaks volumes. She admitted they understand she could be utterly lost to them, that she might have already crossed over to the other side. She beautifully expressed that Nancy could have already returned to the creator she cherished, waltzing above the clouds alongside her own parents, her treasured brother Pierce, and their father. She stated that if fate has dealt this hand, they will find the strength to bear it. However, the family desperately demands answers. They just need her return to them. Just imagine the sheer emotional toll of filming that plea, hitting publish, and bearing that level of vulnerability to an audience of millions. Through the tears, she drove a hard bargain regarding the massive bounty, $1 million, dropped off in untraceable bills, with 0 names attached. She begged the public step up and be the hero who ends this nightmare. You can stay completely in the shadows. You can walk away with cold, hard currency. On top of that, federal authorities are throwing in an extra $100,000 for any golden clue that leads to Nancy's location, or the capture and prosecution of the shadowy figures behind this. Stacked together, that is $1.1 million. We are looking at one of the most staggering bounties ever floated for a vanishing case in the state of Arizona, yet not a single soul has claimed the prize. That tells us one of two things. Either this secret is locked tight with the perpetrators, or the witnesses are utterly paralyzed by fear, even when promised a total blackout on their identity and a 7-figure payday. However, as O'Connell pointed out, when a crew is involved, that kind of cash breeds intense paranoia and friction. The suspicion starts to rot them from the inside. Sooner or later, one of those conspirators is going to fixate on the payout. They will start second-guessing the loyalty of the people standing right next to them. Somebody is going to balance the danger against that massive stack of cash. And eventually, somebody is going to snap. On the 2nd of March, she traveled back to her mother's residence alongside her sibling Annie and her brother-in-law. They stood before the emotional tribute organically expanding across the front lawn. Bright yellow blossoms, Nancy's absolute favorite, alongside heartfelt letters, flickering flames, precious portraits, and quiet blessings. The neighborhood had been laying down these profound gestures of love for weeks on end. Savannah, Annie, and her husband gently placed down their own vibrant bouquets, leaving behind a deeply personal, handwritten note for the woman they missed so fiercely. Even surrounded by such thick shadows and endless doubt, our bond remains unbreakable. We adore you, Mom. The void you left is agonizing. Savannah recently dropped a heartbreaking update on her Instagram feed. Music, the incredible outpouring of warmth and positive thoughts from our local block, the entire Tucson area, and the nation means absolutely everything. Keep holding on to that faith right alongside us. On March 5th, Savannah flew out of Arizona and landed in New York. Stepping back onto the Today Show set for the very first time since her mother vanished without a trace, she confided in her coworkers, "I needed you all to see that I haven't shattered. My spirit is intact, and I haven't lost myself. I am gripping tightly to my convictions. The trust is still there." Following this, a representative from the network issued an official release. Even though she fully intends to get back in front of the cameras, her immediate priority is anchoring her loved ones and doing whatever it takes to get Nancy back safely. There is no exact timeline for her on-screen comeback just yet. Music. Savannah will step back into the spotlight when the moment feels right, when answers finally arrive, or whenever her career feels like a vital piece of her closure. Music. Meanwhile, the intense manhunt pushes forward. No matter what state Savannah happens to be in, day 37. We are still in the dark on critical pieces of the puzzle. Who exactly is the guy hiding his face? Somebody definitely knows those brows, that facial hair, the ring on his little finger, and that incredibly unique weapon harness. Yet, absolutely, nobody has stepped up to the microphone. What kind of ride did they use? The wheels caught on tape at 2:36 a.m. are heavily suspected to be a Kia Soul. According to the visual breakdown, it is not 100% confirmed. Sheriff Nano stated his team is combing through it, right alongside hundreds of thousands of other rides on the road. Were any financial demands met, several highly complex extortion letters were delivered. Still, there is zero official word on whether any cash was ever exchanged. If funds did move, the FBI and the family are keeping those cards glued to their chests. Music, and if no transaction happened, what was the actual endgame here? Then, there is the most agonizing mystery of all. Where exactly is Nancy? Is she still breathing? Tucked away in some desolate desert hideout? Or locked in a suburban home miles away? Could she have been smuggled 60 miles south into Mexico? Or has her fragile condition already proven too much to survive, resulting from being kept hidden for 37 days away from essential treatments? Sheriff Nano maintains his faith that she is with us, though the grim numbers show the odds dropping with every sunrise. Music Nancy is 84 years old and relies on a heart device. She was incredibly robust for her age group, but her senior status is undeniable, if kept without vital medical access. The clock is absolutely working against her, yet the task force refuses to blink. Today marks March 8th, 2026, which makes this day 37. Right now, the word just broke regarding a tampered electrical junction box. The Pima County Sheriff's crew verified that this specific clue is heavily under the microscope. When you piece this together with the rest of the puzzle, the narrative becomes chillingly sharp. The wireless signal blocking angle that tactical specialists have been debating seems incredibly accurate. Music, nearby doorbell lenses, suddenly blacking out right at 2 a.m. A total anomaly for this street. The dog next door jolting awake, locking its eyes straight on Nancy's property. Then, Nancy's heart monitor failing entirely right at 2:28 a.m. A suspicious ride caught on tape 2.5 miles out. Exactly 8 minutes post-blackout. Blended genetic markers strongly pointing toward a coordinated group effort. Music. A disguised figure caught lurking on several different occasions, clearly casing the property. Next-level extortion letters. Music. Serious digital chops required to blind an entire surveillance grid. This was far from a spontaneous strike. It was definitely no crime of convenience. Music. This operation was mapped out flawlessly and pulled off with high-end tech savvy. All of this screams specialized background or hardcore fieldwork from an individual who deeply understood alarm protocols. Infrastructure grids. Music. The exact layout of the streets. The quickest vanishing paths. And quite possibly, someone who brought a crew along. That $1.1 million bounty is guaranteed to crank up the heat. If a whole team pulled this off, greed is bound to tempt at least one of them. One of those associates will eventually figure out that covering for the mastermind simply cannot compete with an instant, lifelong paycheck. The second that insider dials the number, this music entire mystery blows wide open. But until the phone rings, the specialized unit grinds on without a break. We are looking at 4 top-tier investigators and a squad leader grinding around the clock at the FBI Tucson headquarters. Heavy national music, backing, highly advanced labs breaking down trace evidence, and eagle-eyed technicians dissecting every single frame of security video, psychological profilers drafting suspect blueprints. And even now, 37 days deep, fresh clues are emerging. Music, like that smashed network hub just down the street from Nancy's driveway, hard, tangible proof backing up the incredibly dark theory that her sudden vanishing was orchestrated with military-grade exactness. The relentless hunt moves forward. Her loved ones endure the agony of waiting, while out there, a specific person holds the awful truth. Somebody knows the exact location. There is an individual carrying the missing piece that could lead Music her back to safety. If you are sitting on any details regarding the Nancy Guthrie case, you need to reach out to the authorities right this second. Dial 1-800-CALL-FBI. Just to be clear, that number is 1-800-2255-324. Drop your leads digitally over at tips.fbi.gov. You can stay entirely under the radar. The massive payout can even be handed over in pure cash. That is $1.1 million for the thread that brings Nancy back safely. If you have been tracking this chilling mystery alongside us, hit subscribe and switch those alerts on. Music, we cover every single twist, every newly uncovered clue, every official press release, and every crucial shift in the narrative. Nancy Guthrie has every right to absolute justice. Her bloodline deserves the unvarnished truth. Drop a comment down below. Do you buy into the signal jammer hypothesis music? Do you feel in your gut that Nancy is still breathing? How are you interpreting that vandalized neighborhood power box? Let me hear your wildest theories. If you demand a reckoning for what happened here, smash the like button to spread the word. Huge thanks, music, for tuning in today. Remember, an individual out in the world holds the key to Nancy Guthrie's fate. Somebody holds the truth regarding her vanishing. Pick up the phone and speak up. NY's loved ones desperately need answers. The disappearance of Nancy Guthrie is more than just a mystery, it is a powerful reminder of how fragile safety can be, even in the quietest communities. Nancy was an elderly woman living peacefully in a neighborhood where people felt protected, where doors were locked and families believed the world outside was predictable. Yet, in a single night, everything changed. What makes this story so heartbreaking is not only the unanswered questions, but the human cost behind them. A daughter like Savannah Guthrie, someone who has spent her career reporting on tragedy, now faces the unimaginable pain of living inside her own. It shows us that no family is immune to hardship, and no amount of success can shield us from life's darkest moments. But within this tragedy lies an important lesson. Communities matter. Awareness matters. Looking out for one another can save lives. The smallest observation, a strange noise, a suspicious vehicle, a broken network signal can become the clue that changes everything. Most importantly, the story reminds us to cherish the people we love while we still can. Time with family is precious, and safety should never be taken for granted. In the end, justice is not only about solving a crime, it is about restoring hope, protecting the vulnerable, and ensuring that no voice and no life is forgotten.